All right, let's just dive right in with a question that I think is on pretty much everyone's mind these days. How in the world are you supposed to focus or learn or even create anything when the world feels like it's just completely spinning out of control? Well, the answer might just come from a very surprising place, a speech given right on the brink of World War II. I mean, this is the big one, isn't it? With all the political chaos, the social upheaval, that constant fire hose of bad news coming at us, it can feel totally pointless, maybe even a little selfish, to just sit down and try to focus on one thing. You just have to ask, why even bother? But here's the thing. This feeling of being completely overwhelmed, it's not new. Way back in 1939, as the world was about to plunge into a massive war, a whole generation of people were asking the exact same question. And the parallels to our own age of information overload today are frankly a little startling. So the person who decided to tackle this question head-on was the writer C.S. Lewis. Picture this. He's in a church at Oxford, talking to a room packed with students whose lives are about to be totally and completely upended by war. And what he gave them was a powerful, lasting reason to keep on learning anyway. Lewis didn't just give a pep talk. He was a thinker, so he started by diagnosing the problem. He said our struggle to focus isn't just one big, messy anxiety. Nope, he broke it down into 3 specific enemies that are attacking our minds. And as you're about to see, these enemies from 1939 are going to sound very familiar. First up is enemy number 1, excitement. And yeah, not the fun, party kind of excitement. He meant that constant, jittery, nervous energy that you get from an endless stream of news and rumors. It's that anxiety about what might happen next that makes any kind of deep thought feel almost impossible. And the parallel to today is just, boom, right there. In 1939, it was war news crackling over the radio. For us, it's the 24/7 news cycle and that social media feed that literally never ends. The technology is different, but the effect on our brains, what we've now perfectly named doomscrolling, is exactly the same. Okay, on to Lewis's second enemy, frustration. You know this feeling. It's that sinking sensation in your stomach that what you're doing is just completely pointless. That sense that your own personal work is so tiny and useless compared to these huge global crises. It's a feeling that just leaves you feeling powerless. And this translates so directly to our time. A student back in 1939 might have thought, my philosophy paper isn't going to stop a tank. And today we think, this report I'm writing for work isn't going to solve climate change. The sheer scale of the world's problems can make our own efforts feel laughably small. And that brings us to the third and final enemy Lewis identified. And this is the big one, fear. This isn't just about being a little scared. This is that deep, raw, existential dread about the future, the fear of collapse, the fear that the world as we know it is ending. And when that kind of fear takes over, it creates this profound indifference. I mean, why would you start anything if you truly believe you'll never get to finish it? And again, the parallel holds up. In 1939, the fear was very physical, right? It was the fear of bombs, of invasion. Today, our fears can feel a bit more abstract, but they are just as paralyzing. We're talking about economic instability, social collapse, a future that just feels so uncertain. The source of our fear has changed, but its power to just freeze us in place is timeless. So Lewis lays out this pretty grim diagnosis, but he doesn't just leave it there. He immediately shifts to what he calls the defenses, a real practical strategy for fighting back against these 3 mental enemies. So, okay, those are the enemies. What's the defense? This is where Lewis's argument gets really, really powerful. And it's not some productivity hack or a simple to-do list. It's a complete reframing of why we even do the things we do. Here's his core argument in a nutshell. The pursuit of truth and beauty, whether it's in science or history or art, that's not some peacetime luxury that we can just put on a shelf during a crisis. He argued that it's a fundamental part of what makes us human. He called it a human vocation. And in a crisis, that's something you have to actively defend, not abandon. Now, Lewis was a Christian writer, and he used a really interesting analogy from his own tradition to drive this point home. He pointed out that Jesus' first miracle wasn't some huge world-saving event. It was turning water into wine at a wedding. Basically, it was an affirmation of a totally normal, joyful human activity. And his point with that is this. Our normal, everyday activities don't need to be replaced by some grand, more important task. Instead, they can be elevated. He used the word supernaturalized, meaning they can be dedicated to a higher purpose. For him, that purpose was God. But the core idea is universal. You don't stop being a scholar or an artist, you become one with a much deeper sense of mission. And then he takes this whole idea one step further. He argues that continuing our work isn't just something that's okay to do. He says it's actually a duty, a call to become even better at what we do precisely because the times are so dark. Lewis's logic was that having a higher purpose shouldn't lead to less commitment, but to more excellence. He believed a society with a real purpose shouldn't settle for mediocrity. It should be striving to produce better historians, better scientists, and better artists. He put this challenge directly to his audience. A sense of purpose is not an excuse to check out. For Lewis, it should be the very thing that drives you to be more intelligent and more cultivated. Okay, so this is all a really powerful philosophical argument, but how do we actually apply it in 2025, sitting in front of our laptops? Well, Lewis wraps up with some incredibly practical, actionable advice. We can think of it as a wartime strategy for our age of overload. It really comes down to 3 steps. First, do your ordinary duty. The stuff that's right in front of you, your job, your family, your studies, that's not a distraction. That is your purpose. Second, focus on the present. You can't control all of history, but you can control this one moment, this one single action. And third, think rationally. You have to actively defend your mind from despair, because as Lewis warns, if you don't choose to think clearly, you're just going to fall into irrationality. So ultimately, what Lewis is suggesting is that simply by continuing to learn, to think clearly, and to create good work, we are performing an act of resistance. In his time, it was resistance against the barbarism of war. In our time, maybe it's resistance against the forces of distraction, irrationality, and despair. Forces that seem to want a world where deep thought is impossible and learning itself is despised. And that really leaves us with this question. It's not about finding some new grand mission to go save the world. It's about seeing the mission that's already right there in front of you. So in your world of constant distraction and crisis, what is the ordinary duty that you are called to defend?